Good evening, weirdos at home. I lost track of what time it is because I'm so excited to have Mark McKinnon back on.
It's our first return guest.
Yes.
This is Weirdos at Home. You're still Tara Brown. I'm still Sam Slade.
That's right.
But somebody pinched me because Mark McKinnon's back. Mark, where are you, man? You look like you're in Red Dead Redemption. Where are you?
I'm in Blue River, Colorado. Population 800, altitude 10,000 feet. And what you see behind me is the Blue River, and back there is the White River National Forest. So I have National Forest and a river behind me. This is where I live. This is paradise.
Paradise is exactly what I was about to say.
It's amazing. I mean, we had Franchise on, and he had some Arlen Studio stories, which you were at recently, but he's not hanging out in national parks. No. You were in Austin recently.
I was.
Did you have a good time in your old stomping grounds, my man?
I always do, but this was really a dream come true for me because I originally came to Austin back in the 70s as a songwriter, but not a very good one, unfortunately. And but I did. I banged around Austin for a few years, and then one of the few times in my life exercised some judgment and realized that there's some cats around Austin that were way better than I was, and that I probably should consider going to Plan B, which is what I did. It was a hard decision at the time, though. I'd been doing music. I mean, I ran away from home in high school and went to Nashville and lived in Chris Christopherson's apartment for 3 years. So I was pretty dedicated to the cause. But so I was talking to a friend of mine, Monty Williams, Monty Warden, a couple of years ago, and you may know Monty Warden. He's one of the greatest musicians of all time in Austin. Kicked off when he was about 14, and has been, had a ton of different bands, the Wagoneers, and
he was Gary Clark Jr. before Gary Clark Jr.
We were recorded. That was the engineer. The engineer was. We did it at Willie Nelson's studio. But Monty Warden's the guy who said, I was saying, most of the songs I wrote were crap, but there were a couple that were okay, and there was one or two that I really always wanted to hear Kelly Willis sing.
Oh, man.
They said, well, hell, I know Kelly. For a modest fee, we could get a band together and get Kelly in the studio, and why don't we just do that for your 65th birthday?
Oh, my.
That's what we did.
That is so cool, Mark. They got, hey, why don't we who did you want to hear sing it? Kelly Willis? Yeah, I'll call her. We'll get him down here. Happy birthday.
Yeah, it was awesome, and it was
Redbones.
It was everything I hoped and more, and we had Floyd Domino playing piano. I mean, we had some of the best musicians in Austin, and the engineer's the guy that Gary Clark Jr. stuff and Willie Nelson Studio. So I mean, it just couldn't have been any cooler.
That's so cool. I mean, this is why I didn't wear a hat tonight, because you cannot compete with stories like this.
No.
That's why I had to fix my hair. You can't compete with stuff like this.
Your hair's looking very good.
Well, thank you very much. I hope you say the same thing to Heileman when you see us. We do. It's so cool to have you back, and we pre-record now, which means we don't have to worry about glitching out. And we know you're.
Yeah. No. Listen. I love what you guys do, and I love being with you last time, despite our little technical difficulties. But it looks like we're wired for sound now. So
we're working out, and you're out in somewhere lost in paradise, and you're getting better service than we are. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have to talk to Steve Adler again, I think.
About a lot.
Yeah.
Add it to the list.
You don't have the Google Fiber yet?
So the Circus is coming back on Showtime, and I am finally right. I know we've been lost without y'all, but I have to say, for my money, it is the coolest show on TV.
You introduced me to it. I hadn't seen it yet, and then we binge watched all of them. I was hooked immediately.
And it's for those who don't know, it's a real time kind of week by week documentary of what's going on in American politics. I don't know why you wouldn't know this, because they're everywhere. I mean, Colbert rolls out the red carpet for them when they come back to putting out the show. It's a big fucking deal, as our president would say.
Yes, he would.
So I want to know.
Well, thank you for watching.
Because it's a thing where you shoot it week to week. So is it kind of thing where you're just waiting to get out there?
Well, one of the hard things about the show, I mean, first of all, it's hard as hell to make it, which, I mean, I pitched the show for 10 years, and the studios were like, God, we love the idea, but we just don't think you can do it. because we make a documentary in a week. That usually takes like 6 months minimum, and we do it in a week. And we have like 25 editors and 80 people working on the show. It's massive. It's a massive thing, and you know, it's never been. We're almost made 100 episodes now, and it's never been easy. But I mean, imagine the first few months of 80 people never having worked together. Nobody was sure it could be done, and a network that's like sees the show Sunday that goes on Sunday night.
Yeah.
And it was just a human microwave of stress. But you know, we just caught lightning in a bottle in terms of the timing, because I mean, it was lucky it took so long to finally get on the air, because we ended up at this momentous time in our political history, you know, the 2016 campaign. And then I had designed the show to be about campaigns and thought, oh, that was fun, but we're probably one and done. Maybe come back in 2020 and do the next campaign. And they were like a week into the administration said, oh no, get back out there. The circus hasn't stopped. And I was at first skeptical. I said, God, I don't know. It's Washington. It's static. How interesting could it be? Well, they were right, and I was wrong.
Thankfully.
You know, so like, for example, the first year we did 26 episodes, that's a lot of episodes. That's twice as many as most, at least twice as many as most season shows.
Right.
And my only concern was, or one of my major concerns was, that there'd just be weeks where there would not be that much happening. Mm-hmm. So 97 episodes in, that has never happened. There has never not been enough material. It's always, what are we going to cut? What are we going to cut?
You know, for a guy who I've always, you know, you've always kind of been like a half step or a whole step a little before your time. You know, you go, well, I turned in music and I went to my day job in politics and got old boy elected twice. So it's not like, you know, we know what we're talking about here. But
well,
it's like another one.
I appreciate that. I mean, that's one of the reasons I got my original co-hosts involved, because they were very successful, having written the book Game Change.
Sure.
And they saw what we were trying to do as kind of like the next thing, like a video recording of history, and the real-time component of it is what makes it interesting. I mean, it makes it additionally interesting because it's not like we're looking back at what happened. It's like you're in the cockpit. It's happening right now, and the thing that makes good drama is you don't know the end of the story. You don't know how the campaign's going to end. So there's a lot of tension and drama just because we don't know what's going to happen, right? And that TV's always better when you don't know what's going to happen. And what makes good drama is interesting characters, conflict, and surprise. And with Donald Trump as president, we got that every week.
Oh yeah, more often than we needed to, I guess. What I think is funny, two things. Tara has been spending a lot of time trolling the Marjorie and Matt tour.
Yes.
She's been signing up and filling it out. What is the response been so far? Have you heard back? Are you giving any
what's the status of the tour? What's the status of the tour, Tara?
Well,
they're still doing this for some reason. They're still scheduling.
Are they still out in California?
So they scheduled one in Laguna Beach area that the actual venue turned them away, I think the day of or the day before.
Day of.
And said that they didn't realize, they were told it was a community event. That was it. That was all they were said.
Oh, no.
So all of the banquet accommodations were made. The room was rented. Everything was ready. Tickets had been sold. And then they found out what it really was and they shut it down. So which I was surprised for Laguna. That's usually a pretty...
Yeah.
So are they still out there banging around looking for new venues to do it?
I think so. But like the Arizona, I know Arizona, they were there.
Gonna hit Arizona.
California, New Mexico.
I'm sure they'll be here soon again.
Nevada, yeah.
Well, he's got to get him in before he gets indicted. So.
Which, when is that going to happen?
You know, Mark, these young kids these days, they see a trailer and they just want to see the movie. They can't wait. They don't understand art. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm waiting for that because I think it's going to unleash a lot of stuff. I mean, when you were at the Daily Texan, you reported on some sexting stuff. Did you not?
Yeah, we did. There's some weird, child sex rings going on and weird stuff like that. And, yeah.
Well, if you ever need to give me a recommendation, make sure it's bringing the show to a screeching halt.
And now you brought up the child.
And now you brought up child molesters. I want to ask Mark though, for real though, when he was editor at Daily Texan, he kind of got backed into a wall. And like you think about guys like the Chicago 8, you think about like the cool hippies who stood up to the man. There was some situation with an Iranian student protest here in Austin at UT, and you stood firm and you stood up for the right thing. Tell me about that.
Well, it's an interesting story because not of just what happened then, but what happened later. So, what happened then? It was 1980. This is when they had the American hostage crisis in Iran. Big tensions between Iran and America, and UT. As you may know, has a lot of Middle Eastern students, primarily because of the oil curriculum that they have, and they get business degrees and study, a lot of them go to work for Exxon or Conoco or they go back to the Middle East and, run their oil companies in the Middle East, but they go to Texas to learn it. And so there were a bunch of Middle Eastern students there, some of them from Iran. And so, very high tension. And somebody came from Iran to speak at the university. And it was somebody that the students were not happy with at the time. They didn't think it reflected what was really going on in Iran or their point of view. So they protested in a very mild civil protest. I mean, there were maybe 10 of them. They had some signs. They kind of stood up, made some noise. That was about it. But very mild by, sort of standard American protest standards. But what happened is the local authorities saw this as an opportunity to get back at the Iranians who were holding American hostages. So they jackbooted these kids, threw them in jail, and then prosecuted them. And then they wanted, in order to successfully prosecute them, they had to identify them. And we had unpublished photographs. So they wanted our unpublished photographs to identify the protesters. So I just did what any good newspaper editor would do, just told them to, take a hike.
Yeah, hit the road.
So then they went after me and found me in contempt of court and jailed me briefly. And then the defense counsel did circles around the prosecutors, and the thing was over like a week later. And it was, the whole prosecution was ridiculous. It was never going to be successfully prosecuted.
In Travis County, of all places.
It kind of got bounced out. My lawyer sort of said, it's all bullshit. Don't worry about it. This kind of like it'll be expunged or whatever. And so I sort of forgot about it. Flash forward now to post 9/11. I'm in Washington, D.C. I get appointed by President Bush to ambassador status appointment, which means you have to be vetted by the FBI. So I go through these FBI interviews, and they ask me, just a typical question. Have you ever been guilty of a felony or been prosecuted for felony or something like that? And I'm so stupid, and my nickname is Magoo. I literally hadn't thought about this thing in so long. It flies by me. I think they're saying, have you ever done like anything really bad? Right. Like, I don't know, weapons or burglary or something. But it should have. It was just like monumentally stupid. So like a week later, they call and they go, Mr. McKinnon, is there any reason why in this post 9/11 terrorism environment from the Middle East, you wouldn't want to let us know that you defended a bunch of Iranians and defended their rights against American citizens, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, shit. And so, of course, they thought I had intentionally, they thought I that it was an act of commission, not omission. Yeah. And then they were after my ass, man. And so, needless to say, that interview took about 6 months longer, that process.
Oh, my God.
It finally worked out, but I unnecessarily extended the investigation by a factor of a number of months.
That is insane.
I can't imagine.
You're like, my lawyer told me this whole Iranian thing was going to blow over. I'm sorry.
Did you ever, at the time, did you ever talk to your boss about that? Former President George Bush?
No, I didn't.
You don't really, right.
By the time I worked for Bush, that was, almost 15 years later.
Why would you? Yeah.
You know, I don't know that I didn't. He may have said something about being the editor of the Texan and maybe joked about,
Sure.
yeah, you went to jail or whatever, but only kind of towel snapping, locker room kind of stuff.
Right. It wasn't,
Never.
at no point was it you were, hey, tell me what really happened kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think to the extent he knew about it, he just thought I was standing up for principle, which he liked.
He was a very progressive Republican, and looking back, I think.
Well, he's a very principled guy, whether you agreed with him on stuff or not. He was, he had strong principles, and he appreciated people who stood by there. So
that's really interesting.
That's
by the way, I'll tell you another quick story about that if you're interested.
We are.
Of course.
About another thing, a thing that happened in the campaign, and I'm telling you this just to demonstrate how loyal President Bush was to me. 6 weeks out from the election in 2000, and we're behind by like 3 points, and everybody's saying it's the advertising, it's McKinnon's fault, it sucks. It's a really tense time. I walk into my office, and there's FBI agents ripping out computers out of my office. And I'm like, what in the hell are you doing here? And what happened was the FBI had discovered that somebody from the Bush campaign had sent copies of our debate preparation with the president to the Gore campaign. And because I was the former Democrat, everybody just instantly pointed to me. It's like, it's got to be McKinnon. He's a traitor.
Oh my God.
And it was intense as hell. And I got sweated up by the FBI, the lone light bulb routine. And it was, again, super, super intense. But as it turned out, a woman in my office did do it. And it was somebody that I'd known for years who was like a former babysitter who was like just our secretary in the office. And when it first turned to her, I was like, that's ridiculous. It couldn't possibly. I mean, she was like I said, just, 21 or even younger. And it just, the possibility of her being the culprit.
You're thinking there's no way.
Yeah.
Right.
Unimaginable to me. So I, of course, went way out on a limb and defended her. And then they took her home computer and followed it and found it. And they had tape of her going to the post office and mailing these tapes. And she ended in prison for a year.
Oh my God. Mark, what's crazy is I've heard that story told in documentaries about that election, and I've heard about Gore's people tipping off FBI and what have you. But hearing the other side, and I know we say this every time we talk to you, it seems like a Larry David story where it ends up being a secretary that you're defending. And
the coda to the story, and the reason I was telling it to you was that I felt like I was either on acid or in a Kafka novel,
right,
where your world spins upside down. And when I walked into the campaign, again, it was like McKinnon, the former Democrat. Everybody was looking at me with dagger eyes, And the first thing that happened after that all happened and it became public was I got a call, or Bush called me in and said, "Listen, McKinnon, MCAT.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. I trust you 100%. I said, I know you didn't do this. I want you to focus on your job. Don't worry about what everybody's saying. Don't worry about the FBI. Just do your job. Tell the truth. This will all be fine. I'm not worried about it, so you don't worry about it." And, just that message from him at that time really helped me through a rough, very rough period.
Yeah, it meant everything at that point.
Isn't that's the kind of boss everybody wants to work for, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, and he was so good in so many ways, but like that, and also I've worked for so many candidates who meddle. They all think that they know advertising and that they're great communicators. He's like, McKinnon, I hired you because you're good at what you do. I got some strong beliefs, and you're not going to change those, but how you communicate those is totally your deal. And in 2 years and 2 presidential campaigns and probably a couple of hundred ads at least, I remember questioning one ad, wanted to really kind of debate it out. Otherwise he was like, McKinnon, that's your job.
Wow.
You know, so
Wow.
I mean, you got to give him credit for knowing, leave people up to their strong suits,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, good CEOs and good leaders just, are very good at delegating, and he was.
That's right. So when it comes to guesswork, I call Mark McKinnon. When it comes to
Or me. More like
that's the
it.
hosting stuff.
And that's why I did not sing or play at Willie Nelson studio last week.
Hey, I heard you crushed it from the Sun Radio guys on that cowbell, though. Don't sell yourself short.
I did. I killed the cowbell.
It's a very hard instrument.
Well, Tara heard a little bit of trivia about you that we wanted to get into. You're a master of and this is why you were so talented at political media. You're a storyteller at the end of the day, whether that's through song or political ads.
Mm-hmm.
You heard someone told you that he was a consultant on House of Cards, which is one of your favorite guilty pleasures ever. And I know we can't get into.
He sprung that on me about 2 minutes before you popped on here. I was like, why would you not tell me this before? We've talked to him before. I had no idea. And again, another show that he introduced me to that I just fell in love with. And I just was like, wow, I need to ask what that was like.
I only recommend Mark McKinnon projects to Tara.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because one thing that happened to me is I didn't realize it sort of at the time, or not until recently, that the thing that tied all the things that I've done in my life together, which was, a runaway songwriter, a journalist, a campaign guy, a columnist, and then a TV producer, was storytelling. I mean, it's every one of those things. The one thing that all those things have in common is it's all about storytelling, and I realized that's really what I love to do. And I had the opportunity to work on House of Cards, and also on Network with Aaron Sorkin, who's my real hero.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a funny story about that, because I worshipped that guy forever as like the best writer in TV, and I was watching his show, The Newsroom. I said Network, I meant Newsroom. And there was a character, Jeff Daniels is the main character, and somebody was arguing with it, said no Republicans are taking on the Tea Party. He said, well, that's not true. So-and-so and so-and-so and Mark McKinnon are. I was like, holy shit, Aaron Sorkin knows who I am. And not only knows who I am, but put me in his damn TV show. So I had heard that he had just fired all his staff from the first year. And my daughter had just moved to L.A., and I thought, well, maybe they're hiring the coffee person, too. So I emailed somebody I knew at HBO and said, if you can get this note to Aaron Sorkin, please do. And it was just like, dear Mr. Sorkin, I'm such a fanboy. Thank you for mentioning me in your show. And oh, by the way, I hear you fired everybody. Do you need somebody to do coffee? Because my daughter just got to LA. And like 10 minutes later, I got an email back from Sorkin saying, can I hire you? So, of course, I threw my daughter under the bus and I go to work. But actually, a few months later, he was very kind and did meet with her and was very helpful to her. And my big news right now, the thing I'm most excited about, is that, I don't know if I should be saying this publicly. Oh, what the hell. I'll cover my tracks a little bit. But anyway, my daughter's this amazingly talented screenwriter. She had an idea for a show that she pitched me kind of right at the beginning of COVID. And so we worked on this through COVID, and we just recently sold the show, and we're writing the pilot right now. So that's where my energy is.
Oh, look at this breaking news over here.
That's awesome.
Wow, what a great!
Because I get to work with my brilliant daughter. So that's what I'm really psyched about right now.
So cool,
man.
That is
way to I feel like so less productive during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Well, it was. I mean, that was something that probably wouldn't happen without the pandemic. So that was a real upside, because we wouldn't have had the time to do it. And at
the beginning of the pandemic, I remember talking to him, and we were in such a time of uncertainty and being scared. But one thing I did think of was, we're going to get really interesting and original art out of this whole time period.
Yeah.
Visual, spoken word, music, all of it's going to be just a place I don't think anyone could really imagine, because we were never in a place like that really before.
Right.
So that's incredible. Congratulations.
That's so cool.
Wow.
That's extremely.
Well, thank you. I'm very excited. I'm really excited for my daughter because she's such a talent.
Is it? I don't want to get into any spoilers or anything, but what is it? Is it difficult sometimes, Mark? And I know, having from the comedy world, working on campaigns myself, sometimes you're kind of translating for the different worlds. Is it hard sometimes to explain to folks in the creative world or in television, like it's really not that cool?
Well, that's why my daughter recruited me. She's like a brilliant writer, but she doesn't know that much about campaigns or politics, and it's a political drama.
Oh.
So it's like, Pops, what would happen in this situation? What would the campaign manager do? And she's like the brilliant screenwriter, which is not anything I've really done before. I've just done documentary work with the Circus, but this is scripted drama, so it's kind of new to me. But she's been doing it for a while, so I'm learning a ton. And but like I said, I'm kind of the guy to say, okay, here's how it really goes down.
That's
good.
And
That's the stuff I need to hear.
Right, and usually probably even weirder than you thought you could have imagined it when it comes to politics. Like, I mean, Mark's FBI story.
I know.
I've heard the other side of that from all these gore documentaries.
Well,
Mark's
you might see that, you may see that story in the show. One of the things they liked about the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One of the things I liked about that they like about me and my daughter working together is that it's a lot about our lives. I mean, it's fictional, but we draw from stuff that's happened to us in our lives, so they like that component of it. And as you know, working in campaigns, there's just endless stories.
It never ends. I've told Tara a few. I mean, you just Google David Alamil, and that will drive you crazy by itself when he ran for Texas Senate. I mean, for folks who don't know, Mark's part of the Austin Film Society.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a natural fit here. How'd you? Hang on, Mark. I'm sorry. The new addition to the family just jumped on my back. So I'm playing. This is there? He's never been able to get this high. This is Conan. He's been with us for a week, Mark. I apologize. He's cutting into your interview here.
I'm delighted to have Tony make his first cameo.
All right,
Conan, hit the road.
Moving, hit the road.
I want to ask you one thing. I got kind of the kitten messed me up. What's the plan here, Mark? What are the options for Texas Democrats?
Just keep working your ass off. There's no magical solutions. Flying to Washington isn't going to fix it. You got to stay on the playing field, and it's just a ton of hard work, and it's finding and recruiting candidates all down the ballot, getting smart on your messaging. Don't lose, border Hispanics to the Republican Party.
No reason.
Don't go out and sell defunding police as your main message.
Nobody wants that.
Understand what middle America is, and don't become the national Democrats. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Be Texas Democrats. Be like Ann Richards. And
yes,
get tough enough. So there's no magic solution, but it just takes. Listen, I saw Karl Rove and others do it with the Republican Party. I mean, there was no Republican Party in 1989 to speak of, really. All 28 statewide ballots in Texas before 1990 were Democrats.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In 1998, after George Bush had been around a little while, all 28 were Republican.
Yeah.
So that's how quick you can flip the switch.
If you work for it, get out there and do the hard work like you're talking about.
What happened in 10 years? I mean, it was a complete wholesale change in Texas in 10 years. So it can happen.
You can't weed the folks out who are interested in doing message and telling stories, I think. And that's something we've been struggling with.
Messaging, yes.
And telling a story about what we're trying to do as opposed to, trying to chest poke.
And, I like what he said, toughen up a little, too.
Yeah, no, I've always been. I don't know if you...
I know you don't have to be told, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mark McKinnon. I don't want to. He's up in paradise. I don't want to eat up any more of his time out there. It's obviously there's something more fun going on behind the camera. Oh my God! Yes.
As he just canoes away.
Right. Mr. Great Outdoors, Mark.
I'm gonna go fishing right there, right
Oh
now.
my God. Mark, we're gonna have you back on later this fall if you're down. Thank you so much, man. It's always so much fun talking to you.
Hey, you guys are my favorite weirdos. Kick it hard. Carry on regardless.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. We'll talk to you
All
soon.
right.
Thank you, man.
And thank you to everyone else who joined us. It was great seeing everyone, and have a great evening.
Get vaccinated.